Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
All right, Vikings Vent Line every weekend here on the Purple Daily YouTube channel and podcast feed. Hit that like button and subscribe button if you'd like to support Purple Daily, and if you'd especially like to come on an episode of Vikings Vent Line. This is a show for all Vikings fans and NFL fans, but I mostly like to reserve it for Vikings fans. If you have takes on the offseason, on the upcoming season, what happened last year, anything Vikings or Purple related, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to have you on this show. We record these every week during the off season, so if you're a Vikings fan, you want to come on this show, Vikings Vent Line, hit me up. It's vikingsventline@gmail.com for that YouTube audience that's scrolling across the bottom of the screen. And of course, Vikings Vent Line is powered by our friends at Standard Heating and Air Conditioning. Standard is the gold standard, pun intended, for all your HVAC and all your furnace and air conditioning needs. If you got that thing on the fritz, if you don't know what you're looking at and you don't want to DIY it, which I don't recommend doing, instead you should just call Standard Heating and Air Conditioning. They can help you diagnose it. They can help you fix it. And they also give you the peace of mind of what you're looking at too. So if you have any of those needs that you need to get fixed in your house, call Standard Heating and Air Conditioning. They can help you out. Also, Standard is a proud sponsor of our Purple Daily Draft Party. They are the presenting sponsor of the Purple Daily Draft Party, which is coming up here in just a little less than a month. So it's just around the corner. We're super excited to have them on board. And a shout out to Roku and Two Men and a Junk Truck for also helping us power that Purple Daily Draft Party. All right, let's get our guys in here. Let's get Mason and Aaron in. They are joining Vikings Vent Line for the first time. Mason, you've been listening to Vikings Purple Daily for the last 2.5 years. You said your dad got you into it. I feel like it's sometimes the other way around. I feel like the son's getting into the dad, but the dad has got you on into it. Love to hear that. Are you in Minnesota? Are you somewhere else? Where are you calling from?
So I'm from St. Louis. My entire dad's side of the family from Minnesota. They've always been huge Vikings fans and basically just roped me into it. Overall, I mean, my entire life, but I really started getting into football about 4 years ago.
Okay, cool. I just got back from St. Louis. I was there for the last 4 days. Watched the Twins and Cardinals. Awesome place to be. I have never seen Busch Stadium in Ballpark Village. Great town. Awesome. Obviously there's a lot of Twins fans there because the Twins were obviously playing. But I saw some Vikings stuff too. It was a cool little town. Glad to see you're supporting the Vikings down in Missouri. That's awesome. And then Aaron, how long have you been a Vikings fan, and where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Idaho, and I started following the team right towards the beginning of the 23 season.
Okay. What got you hooked on the Vikings?
Well, it's actually kind of a funny story because my brother got me into it from just watching the documentary that you guys mentioned a while ago by Secret Base, done with John Boyes and Alex Rubinstein.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
They're the ones that did that. And so watching that, plus I had some sort of affiliations with Minnesota through other sports teams like the Jazz. I grew up in Utah.
Okay.
So the big Rudy Gobert trade. So I was kind of keeping an eye on him, seeing how Minnesota fans are treating him. And then it's funny how Mike Conley goes there, and now Joe Ingles too. It's just so funny how many Utah Jazz players have ended up in Minnesota. Plus that, including one of my favorite artists is from Minnesota. So just kind of having those few connections, plus just watching that documentary was like so compelling of the history and just everything about the Minnesota franchise was really attractive to me. So just being in the NFL free agency and not really having any team to root for, being from Utah and Idaho. So
very cool.
I mean,
very interesting. I love that, man. So guys, let's get into some stuff here on Vikings Vent Line. I like asking fans, expectations and what they want the team to do. So let's start for now in the draft. Mason, we've had some first free agent waves come and go, but what do you want the Vikings to do in the draft? They got some limited picks, but what would you like to see them do at this year's draft?
So when it comes to the draft, I'm thinking I definitely want to trade back. I don't want to trade out of the first round, though. I would like to trade back as far as we can, maybe around pick 30 to 32, and then pick up a safety. I really like Nick Emmanwori. I think he's just really great. I know Malachi Starks is definitely an option. I think he's going to be gone way earlier than that, but if he is there at 24 rather than trading back, I would like to pick him up instead. And then when it comes to the later rounds, after picking up some picks from trading back, I would prefer to probably pick up a running back if we're picking up a few picks in the second to third round. I definitely want to pick up another defensive lineman, defensive tackle. I know my dad loves Derek Harmon, and I've started to really grow around that idea. And then in the later rounds, I definitely want to pick up probably wide receiver, corner, basically just fill in our backfield, just get as much depth as we possibly can.
Yeah, the fact that they have the limited picks, I think trading back is probably a likely scenario. And then they've set themselves up where they could go BPA. They could do a safety, which is a long-term need. I think even though they've gotten a nice couple pieces here in Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrove, they could still probably use, again, more depth on the defensive line and just build around that too. So, yeah, I think BPA, and this is the best part about them fixing a lot of their things in free agency, is they get to have that luxury. So I'm very excited to see kind of where they want to go in that direction. We're a little less than a month away from the draft. It's still an exciting time. Can't wait to see what happens. Aaron, how about you, though? What do you want to see the Vikings do in the draft this year?
I'm kind of along with the lines of what you were saying, like getting the best player available. My personal opinion, and this is through a gentleman's agreement I made with my brother-in-law, is I want them to draft Cam Scatterby because my brother-in-law is a big ASU fan. And we came to terms that if the Vikings draft Cam Scatterby, we're going to a game. Okay. So that's kind of my own personal vendetta there. But yeah, best player available, filling out needs long-term, because who knows if Harrison Smith's going to play another season.
Right.
And so safety, corner, having some depth in the D-line would be nice, and just have fresh legs, being able to rotate through since Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Allen are older. Having some young legs to get in there and keep things fresh so that Flores can just keep the guns blazing there.
So if they get Scatterby, would you guys come to a game here in Minnesota? Would you guys go to a road game? What were you kind of thinking?
I'd like to go to a Minnesota game just because I want to be there for the environment with the Galler horn and the Skull chant. The whole 9 yards is definitely what I want to have be my first Vikings game experience for sure.
Amazing. Have you ever been up to US Bank for a game yet or no?
Yeah, I went to one, I think back in 2019, I want to say.
Okay, cool. Do you like it too?
Yeah, it was a really fun experience. Skull chant was definitely my favorite thing sports related I've ever done.
Yeah, it's crazy being in there. The energy is incredibly palpable. I'm back here on the home front. Judd's there for all the games, but it is a kind of you have to experience it to believe it kind of situation. It is a really cool place to see a game. If anyone hasn't gone, that they've always wanted to go. I know it's obviously not cheap to get to an NFL game and a Vikings game in particular. If you have the extra cash, make it happen. It's a lot of fun. Transitioning kind of back into free agency though, fellas. So if the Vikings are done making free agent ads, well, I should rephrase this. Are the Vikings done making free agent additions? Or is there someone else still out there that you'd like to go see? Aaron, I'll start with you. Is there still another player that you kind of like to see the Vikings target in free agency?
Yeah, I think it was kind of funny when they brought up, I think in the episode a day or two ago, the record speculation call-in talking about Asante Samuel Jr.
Yeah.
Because I looked at that and I thought, he could be really interesting filling out that cornerback room. I think maybe Amari Cooper could be an interesting, just kind of, I don't know if he's even a viable wide receiver 3 or if he wants some wide receiver 2 looks instead, and that might cause some frustration on the part of Addison maybe, but definitely some depth there. But I think when push comes to shove, I think it's just a lot of O-line and D-line depth. Obviously, left guard is still up in the air.
Yeah.
Unless we're just going to still rock with not Ingram.
Like Randall.
Randall, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So some depth there, or just an all-out replacement, I think would be really good.
Yeah,
but
I think.
Sorry, at the end, what I just want to finish saying is, like, at the end of the day, like, I really just trust the front office just to do what they need to do. Thus far, I think it's gone better than any of us could have expected. Like, at this point, I think I would trust this front office to watch my kids for 2 weeks while my wife and I go on an Alaskan cruise. Like,
they totally exceeded the expectations. I mean, no one saw that coming, that they could like make all. We did, those blueprint episodes, and those were super fun. But we kind of had it like, all right, if they can do 1 or 2 of these moves, it'd be great. It kind of felt like, oh my gosh, they hit some of the things we were all hoping they'd do in the dream scenario, and they did. Asante Samuel's a super interesting one. They don't really have a bona fide stud at corner. And I don't know if Asante Samuel is like the shutdown guy that And there's a reason he's still out there in free agency, but he would make that room significantly better. And I do think they'll find some like nice depth pieces. Yeah, like they've brought in Dalton Reisner twice now. They can find some nice depth guys after the first, second wave of free agency, and then post draft too. Wouldn't be surprising if they added like another offensive lineman, even another D lineman into that mix too. Mason, how about you though? Do you think they're done making moves? Do you want to see them go after anyone in particular?
So I really like the idea of Asante Samuel Jr. as well. I think we pretty much covered all bases on that though. So other than that, I think depth is pretty much guaranteed. But in terms of backup quarterback, I think we are definitely going to go post draft for that. I think Carson Wentz, Joe Flacco, best two options available for us personally. Carson Wentz, I think, would be the better player. Joe Flacco would definitely be better as a mentor for J.J. McCarthy and better locker room presence in general.
What about you, Aaron? I mean, Carson Wentz, does that do anything for you? I mean, Joe Flacco, he's a little up there in age, but he can still play a little bit. Who would you like to kind of see back up J.J. McCarthy in 2025?
I honestly like the idea of bringing back Kirk. Am not. Yeah, it sounds weird, but just the relationship there, I think, is pretty positive, and they have that cap space for something. So that's what's like still looming out there as a mystery. But as far as Wentz goes, I haven't been following the NFL enough to really know the whole character arc for Wentz. I do remember when I was younger and I think he just got drafted and he was playing really well and people were making a lot of noise about him. That's all I remember. And so I think maybe KOC can kind of tap into his quarterback coaching roots and maybe kind of get Wentz up if need be. If he does end up having to play, then I think KOC can bring the best out of him.
Yeah, so he basically was I think the second overall pick in 2016, has a decent rookie year, but then in 2017, he's basically playing at an MVP level. He was on track to win the MVP award. He gets hurt with like 3 games to go in the regular season. That's when Nick Foles takes over. Vikings fans know how that ends. And then he still remained the starter of Philly for like the next few years, but he's still and he had some good moments still after the big knee injury, but never really put it all together, has bounced around to a bunch of teams. So that's kind of, I think that's mostly the lore of it since then. And then with Kirk, I mean, if he can accept being a backup and if Atlanta's indeed going to cut him, then yes, I'm all for that. But I think Kirk still thinks, and I also believe, he can still play a little bit too. So I don't know if Kirk is ready to accept a backup role. I would say, though, in terms of those options, Kirk's my favorite option just because is the best person in the event McCarthy gets injured or can't start. So, yeah, there's some intriguing ones out there. And it might be post-draft that this is probably addressed to. I don't know if they'll like draft another quarterback in one of their last few picks. I think it'll be probably after the wave of the draft. So, Aaron, I know you haven't been following the Vikings along a ton, but who is your favorite Vikings player of all time? I guess this is a fun one to ask you since you've only been following the team for a little bit.
Yeah, having watched that documentary, I mean, it's for those of you who don't know, I really recommend it. It's really amazing. Good. It's 7 parts. It ends up being about like 9 hours, but really good stuff. And going into detail about the 70s teams is really, really interesting. But one of my favorites that kind of just has stuck out to me from the 70s teams is Jim Marshall. Just like such a wacky dude. Like he goes from holding the record for the most consecutive starts from a defensive player. He has interest in like chess, oil painting, sculpting, skydiving, judo, scuba, and he crashed a glider plane that he built himself. He like almost dies in a snowmobiling trip in Montana, and then he like gets taken to the hospital because he lodged a grape in his throat. Like some of the most random things, and he's just like, it's just so cool to me that he's doing all these crazy things, but he's also really good at the game, and in my opinion, should be in the Hall of Fame.
Right. It's an intriguing case because he definitely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. He's remembered for a horrible blunder of running the wrong way.
I forgot to mention that. So funny.
That's really he is a Hall of Famer, and ridiculously he ran the wrong way, and then that's kind of like the black eye of his resume. But he 100% should be in the Hall of Fame. But yeah, Purple People Eaters. Obviously, we're kind of some younger guys here, but The Vikings' history has obviously litany of players that are awesome from different eras, from the 70s into the 80s and 90s, 2000s, etc. There's been a ton of really good players that have come through this team. Mason, how about you, though? Who is your favorite Vikings player of all time?
So I don't always like picking the most basic answer. But for me, one of the first drafts I ever watched was the 2020 draft.
Yep.
And seeing Justin Jefferson get drafted, at the time it was a little bit questionable. We had those other wide receiver prospects that we had seen, and I was honestly higher on Jalen Reagor, unfortunately. But it just, I don't even know how to explain it. Seeing him step on the field for the first time, seeing the way he runs, Justin Jefferson is just incredible. And he doesn't follow what a lot of other big-time wide receivers do. Big divas have to cause a lot of trouble to get what they want. Like Stephon Diggs, I was really happy, honestly, we got rid of him. I would rather have a proper locker room with everybody with a good attitude over the absolute best player that we can, who is going to complain all the time. And Justin Jefferson is the best of both worlds. He's a great guy and an amazing player, obviously. And I think overall, he hit a lot of marks in my book.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always, I try to not warn, it's probably not the best word, but with Mackie and Judd in particular, and we've obviously, Purple Daily, we've kind of flipped the switch or turned on a lot of people to Justin Jefferson fans that have joined along with his ride to the Vikings, or maybe they were young fans and they were just impressionable and they saw Justin Jefferson. That's how they became a Vikings fan. That's how things worked with Randy Moss. That's how things worked with Adrian Peterson. Sometimes those players can be flawed human beings, or you don't love their attitudes, but they draw you in, and that's their cornerstone player. And to Mason's point, that Justin Jefferson's never really been a distraction or a diva, or doesn't have any off the field things that have come up to light, or has ever really. He just wants to play football and he wants to win. That's all he really cares about. So it's always interesting to me when I hear fans bring up names that are on the team currently, or that I've just only recently discovered Vikings players and teams, just like both of you guys have. So appreciate those. Those are awesome, awesome big ones. Before we wrap up here, though, Aaron, any other hot takes, any other last things you'd like to get off your chest here on Vikings Vent Line?
Not necessarily. I'm just really excited for the season.
Yeah.
Just seeing all the additions that they've made. I just want to see them get on the field or just in the practice field too, and just kind of see how they gel. Because one of my favorite things about following this team last year is the locker room chemistry. One of my biggest draws as a fan to specific players is who they are as a person more than they are as a player. And that's why I am a big fan of Justin Jefferson. So I think I'm just excited for this ball to get rolling, man. And the draft is not soon enough. So just ready to get it going.
Yeah, it's always a long off season, and then especially after they've had this type of off season and the draft being around the corner, you want to see it happen. You want to see them on the field. So it'll be here quicker before we know it. I mean, the season ended almost 3 months ago now, and now we're right around the corner of the draft, and then it's gonna be mini camp, and the NFL offseason has taken over obviously the sports world, but there's still plenty of great things to pay attention to, and going to be an awesome start. I can't wait for the 2025 season to start too. Mason, how about you, though, man? Any last hot takes? Any other things you'd like to get off your chest here on Vikings Vent Line? The floor is yours.
I don't think this year is our year. I think next year is our year. I think 2026 is going to be our Super Bowl season. I think it's going to take this first year to get the team, really prepared, get the team chemistry going. But next year, I think it's our year. We definitely have all the proper pieces now. Yes, it's a little bit older, but I think we're definitely in win now mode, and picking up, Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave, really getting our defensive tackle position locked in. I don't think there's much more for us to get, maybe a good corner in Asante Samuel, or even just drafting somebody. I think we just need that one extra little push, and I think that next year will be our year.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, they've kind of lined themselves up where they have a lot of veteran players they brought in. They're still one of the oldest football teams in the league, even with JJ being a first-year starter. But these next 2 years are imperative, right? Like, if it doesn't happen this year, then yes, the pressure is on to make it happen in 2026. And if McCarthy again continues to progress and is the quarterback he is, then hopefully when you do pay him the big contract, he can overcome any other deficiencies when it comes to building out your roster. But yeah, these next 2 years for Vikings fans, these are going to be a lot of fun. Obviously, last year and 2022 were more kind of pop-up seasons no one saw coming. But the expectations now are legitimate. And national media might take a little bit to jump on that bandwagon, but I think that's totally okay. Let them talk about the Giants and the Jets all the dang time, and Vikings continue to win games, and hopefully KOC gets his first playoff win. Things will go from there. Well, fellas, thank you so much for coming on Vikings Vent Line. Appreciate you guys. Awesome takes. Anyone who wants to come on a future episode, you can hit me up again. It's vikingsventline@gmail.com. Would love to hear from you. Purple Daily, daily Vikings entertainment, where you just want to see the Vikings win a Super Bowl before we die.